Alright, we're going to do full documentation on the Black Widow Cherokee build here for one of the Indiana locals. And the first thing I'm going to do when I start on these custom cages with the Rockalope chassis is I'm going to do some support pieces. So at the front and back of this chassis, there's going to be some 3/16 pass-through holes. I like to just cut some pieces to 75 millimeters wide and get those set up in the just to try to give it some structure. The next thing I'm going to do is to locate the body. And to locate the body, we're going to need to run the slider bars that come off of the chassis, and they're going to end at the edge of the rocker on the car. So I took a measurement of this width, and it's 205 millimeters. So we're going to cut those, and we're going to slide the bars all the way through both pieces. Now I know the drive shafts are going to hit, but we're not at that point yet. So what that's going to do is give us a place to set the body on, and then get stuff tacked up. We are going to cut the middle out of those slider bars later. Alright, so we got the pieces cut to fit, so now the body rests on these slider bars. These are just pressed in for now. So I measured this width, and it was about 200 millimeters, so I cut them 205, just a little bit longer so there's room to trim. You never want to be too short, but anyway. So you run these all the way through the chassis, and then you get the spacing set evenly. In this specific case, it's 60 millimeters of stick out on all the corners there. So next we're going to get it tacked on the outside, and then we're going to cut the center section out, and then we'll cut it flush, and they'll do the little rosette welds on the back of all of these. Alright, and I'm going to be TIG welding this chassis. I use the Square Wave TIG 200. And for the thicker stuff, so the solid bar and the chassis rails, as well as our bumper tabs, you're going to want to run about 100 amps. For mild steel, about 90 amps, 85 to 90 amps, depending on the thickness. So before we get welded too, everything was wiped with isopropyl alcohol or acetone. You can use whichever one, but you want to make sure everything's nice and clean so you don't get any contamination in your welds. That's the last thing you want. Get everything set up, lined up and perfect, and then you go to weld it, and then you have a bad weld. So I've also checked the measurements to make sure the stick outs haven't moved since I set everything up. So now we're going to get it welded. That gas flowing so you don't get any contamination velocity on the next one. Alright, so we've removed the center supports, so the skid plate and that front brace that we had there. Those were just spacers to get this all set up. So next I'm going to cut the bars right as tight as I can to the rails on the inside. We'll save these parts, they may be used later in the build. Actually, they might go into the front brace there. But anyway, let's get this thing cut up. And what I'm going to use to cut this is an angle grinder on an angle grinder stand. And what's cool about this is it's like a mini version of the chop saw. So it's a little bit more precise, a little easier to control. And the way I like to use it the best is literally just on the stand. I don't even operate it like that. I just shove in my parts. It's like somebody holding the saw for you. It's really helpful. So here we go. Ways I will use this table. So I have the flat fixture bolted to the table, so the chassis is on the table. Just kind of like keeping it secure. So the next piece I'm going to add is I cut these slider bars out of our square stock that we have. And I'm going to get the body located. And it's just nice to be able to have the chassis secured on the table. So now I'll line up my wheel arches where I want them. And I might have to support this body because this is a heavy body. Or I can just put something on the hood, like a 3-2-1 block. Alright, so now we're into body locations. I feel like the wheel well is pretty good there since the customer wants it a little more forward so we can kind of cheat the body forward while we're mounting it. So that front post is going to line up with the A-pillar door line. Well, not the A-pillar, but where the A-pillar ends, that front door line. And the rear one ends up right on the B-pillar. So anyway, we got the chassis bolted to the table securely. And now we'll fixture up these pieces and have them set up like that, and then get those welded up. And obviously, the coolest part about this is everything's stuck down. I need to get to this weldment now. Just pick up the table, turn it around. Nothing moves. Now we get the other piece set up and get that welded on. Now with the slider bars welded or tacked up, we can unscrew the wing nuts, remove the table clamp, and then take the piece off, and then we can do the rest of the welding on those joints there. We just tacked it right on the top. Whereas these ones, you can see that we did a full weld on the outside, and then those rosette welds on the inside.